Welcome, Rob, in the Huey Games HQ. Oh, wow. I see behind you, you have a plaque and you're not at home. Is that right?
I'm not at home. I'm in the office in Manchester. Yes,
Oh, my goodness.
right by Chinatown. So lots of good food around, which is always good.
And it's interesting to see that you have a physical space. And is there any physical developers there with you as well?
There are some physical developers in the room. Yes, they're here. In fact, we're testing one of the games that we're porting at the moment that you might be able to see in the background.
Oh, amazing. So a real games development company that we have here.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. We've been, in fact, Huey Games is celebrating our 10th anniversary in 2026. So we've been going for 10 years, and we've had the pleasure of working on fantastic games for the likes of Konami and Devolver, Inscription. We're doing a game called Outbound at the moment, which is massive on Steam. We're doing the console ports of that. So yeah, we get to work on some fantastic games for all sorts of publishers and developers.
That's interesting. We'll come on to that, actually. I wasn't going to specifically start with that, but I'd like to know a little bit more, because in 2026, it's good to know that, there's people, not AI, perhaps, using technology and developing games in the UK and in Manchester as well. So you're right in the heart of it. I think I'll kick out with the first question, and in
Sure.
that respect. So what, the fact that you've been going for 10 years, etc., what's made you go down the path of really coming up with a retro arcade game and in a roguelite? Because obviously it's a different style to a typical shoot 'em up side scroller or shump. There's more to the game. What made you decide to kind of mix up that roguelite element and also have a much more pixelated feel to it? What was the journey of that?
Yeah, so obviously we released the original Hyper Sentinel in 2018, and that was with Jonathan Port, aka 456 Pixel, as the lead developer. And we wanted to collaborate again with Jonathan, and Jonathan, started working on a sequel a couple of years ago now. And myself and Pete Gomer, who's the head of design here, we went round to Jonathan's house when he was ready with an early demo to play it. And we saw what he had running was this fantastic version of Hyper Sentinel, the sequel, Hyper Sentinel 2, as it was then.
Yeah.
And we'd kind of said, well, the original Hyper Sentinel was kind of 8-bit style. That's what it was. The sequel is kind of 16-bit. So graphically, it looks like it takes it to another level in terms of inspiration. But of course, there's lots of modern stuff going on, like procedurally generated levels, for example. So the level is different every time you play. So he had this going, and he had this wonderful, slick control system that the fighter felt just so much more agile and fluid.
Yes.
And it was just, already it just looked straight away like Jonathan had built a great foundation for the sequel.
Yeah.
And then when we were sat there, myself and Pete were talking about, we're reminiscing about retro games and games we've played in our youth. And this thing of when you're a kid playing a shoot 'em up, you always wanted to kind of land the ship and then carry on the fight, which of course you couldn't do back then.
Yeah,
but it was something that you would sort of fantasize about as a kid. Imagine if we could land and the pilot gets out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about this with Jonathan, and then we were sort of throwing ideas around, and somehow it came back to, I might have mentioned Paradroid, obviously, another game that was a big hit for Dad's company back then. And we had this thought of like, well, hang on a minute, what about if you because he already had you landing.
Mm-hmm.
You already had you landing and you kind of refill your energy. Like, well, what about if you land and then we go inside and there's like a droid style section, like Droid Assault was another fantastic game. And sort of Jonathan thought about this and then went away. And before we know it, he had a demo of these droid sections in there as well. And then it just kind of evolved from there.
Okay.
Pete plays a lot of roguelike games.
Sure.
He sort of said, well, let's get this kind of roguelite loop into it. Let's get this idea of getting the loot and upgrading a ship and getting more and more powerful. And it kind of all came from there.
Yeah, no, I think having played it, the demo, which you've got out, and obviously there's a link down in the description below, as well as the Kickstarter link, just important to say, by the time this comes out, Kickstarter will be live. Let's just get it out there now. That is the way that you're going to experience the game. And there's a Kickstarter demo, isn't there, for the game available? Am I right in saying that?
That's right. In fact, there's 2 demos. So there is a public demo that's on the Steam page, and that's the best place to start off to get into the game. And then there's a kind of Kickstarter exclusive demo, which shows a level from later in the game, which is only up while the Kickstarter's on. Okay. And that shows something a bit different. That's kind of, so the first level is set in space, and you get to experience that, but then the second level is on the forest moon of Gion and skimming across the water and stuff. So it's and you're kind of powered up with all these extra weapons and upgrades. So yeah, there's kind of 2 demos to try out for the Kickstarter.
It's interesting you said about because when I was playing it, I kind of got a gauge of that deep level of detail that you've got in it now at 16 bits. Almost like late 80s, 90s style, but you've kind of upgraded like an arcade game, really. I mean, for the actual, let's talk about the main kind of shooter aspect to it, and then come on to the, like you said, the kind of droid area with the big, which looks amazing, I have to say. Can't get enough of that big ship. But yeah, it's there's a lot more agility, perhaps, with the ship.
Yes.
Around, you can literally almost do circles of it as well, can't you? It's so malleable, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of ducking and diving, we wanted players to feel like they're kind of in a Top Gun movie, or they're piloting this really agile, nimble little space fighter, starfighter, against this massive alien megastructure, and kind of tearing it down before you go and sort of do the high stakes heist from within. And so that agility of the ship's really important. Being able to feel like you can kind of duck and dodge and dip under the bullets and come back from the other side and get the turret. Yeah, we really, there's a lot of work that Jonathan's put in particular, to just refining that movement and the feel of the ship. And we've added, there's other upgrades you can get. You can kind of lock the direction of the ship, and you can get a kind of dodge flip shield, as part of the upgrade loop. So you can kind of get stronger and stronger in that respect. But yeah, that fundamental feel, that feeling of speed and agility is really crucial for that component of the game.
Because there's games like that. I mean, games like Super Sprint, you could add with the little spanners, add more things to it. I think it just enhances the simple mechanics of the game, which you obviously get in shooters. R-Type, Nemesis, Salamander. They all had the sort of lower bar, didn't they, for the kind of power ups? Which is a slightly different thing, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah,
absolutely. And it gives the player some agency, because you can choose how you want to upgrade your ship. So for me personally, I always like to go, so we have augments and we have upgrades in the game. So augments augment existing abilities, and upgrades are kind of new abilities. And I always like to, when you choose which augment you're going to go for, I always like to get the kind of health related ones first. So increasing your maximum health, or health pickup effect +1, or those kinds of things, because I like to give myself a little bit longer survival time first, and then I start to go down the path of upgrading weaponry and other things like that. But that's just how I like to play. You might decide to go, no, I'm going to upgrade weapons, or I'm going to upgrade the maneuverability of the you can kind of gives the player that agency to make those choices. And because it's procedurally generated levels, you can have a different experience every time you play, depending on how you play it and what choices you make.
It definitely has that aspect of those 2 things. I mean, one, being able to go back in a shooter, there's nothing worse. You've missed something, isn't there? When you could be like, you want to take out a particular ship, or a building, a structure, or something like that, and and in a lot of obviously arcade games, you never had that possibility. Even, to be honest, in getting into things like Thunder Force and other games, but that ability to almost like a Mario game, where you can go back, you can Super Mario World I'm talking about, but certain games where it doesn't quite feel typically like you're in a linear path, which is obviously what Road Alert is about, but the height of the way you can move up and down as well is quite considerable, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the the things in this sequel, that they're much bigger kind of arenas, if you like, that you can duck and dive between. So like you say, you can go scroll up as well as side to side.
Yeah.
And exactly like you say, you can kind of go to one end of the level, and then maybe you destroy a turret and you get a weapon pickup that comes out of it. Let's say it's the heat-seeking missiles, and then the heat-seeking missiles are really good for going back. You might go back and go, oh, I'm going to go back and get that massive turret that was over here. It was a bit hard to get with the lasers, but with the heat-seeking missiles, they kind of like, take out ground targets more effectively. So you can kind of, like you say, fly back and go back and get that. And then inside that, you might get some currency. One thing leads to another.
Mm. And how do you? The question I've got is like, obviously for Jonathan, he's making the game. It depends on who the developer is. Not every developer is perfect at gameplay, but how do you balance his upgrades with skill? I guess you've maybe I don't want to answer the question for you, but I suppose if you make it too easy to allow people to upgrade, it's like a cheat too early, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does that work? I mean, do you test it within each other, or is it just like experience?
So first of all, yeah, we do test internally, but also we have on our Discord group, we have a group of really kind of hardcore fans of the game and of the original, who come and play test the game with us. Mm-hmm. So we use a platform called Go Testify, which is a play testing platform. So people can test the game, and then we can see the video capture of them playing, and if they've got a microphone, they can tell us what they're doing and give us their feedback verbally, and it gives like kind of a heat map across the bottom of the video of their where they're getting stuck and so on. So that really helps us to fine tune and balance the game. That's the first thing. The second thing is Jonathan's implemented a really clever kind of difficulty leveling system as well. So you can the game will suggest to you if that a higher difficulty is available to switch to, or a lower difficulty, depending on how you're playing. So you can use that, or of course you can just kind of like do that dynamically. But yeah, it's the great thing about the game is you go in the first time you play it and you think there's this massive overwhelming enemy.
Challenging, isn't it? It's
super challenging. Yeah. And then you upgrade and you're a bit more powerful, and you're a bit more powerful, and then you start. Eventually, you feel like, oh my god, this thing that seemed impossible at the beginning is now like I'm kicking its ass a bit. So it's quite satisfying.
That is what makes a good game, isn't it? You don't want to be relentlessly just hitting a brick wall within 2 minutes of playing, but equally you don't want to be just don't want to name names, but some games are just so easy. You just you kind of, I don't know what it is. Pac-Man I find so easy in the arcade.
Right. Yeah.
Pac-Man.
Yeah.
I think it's built that way, on purpose, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to keep people on that razor's edge between where it's just challenging enough that that it's not boring, but it's not so challenging that they give up. You want to keep them there. That's where that elusive flow state happens, right? So that's what you've got to go for. But
is that something you use across a lot of your games, in terms of like testing the kind of playability and challenge?
Absolutely. And you can never play test too much. It's always amazing, both through platforms like Go Testify, but also we go to Comic-Con and all these events and just watch people play the game. And it never ceases to amaze you, the things that they get stuck on, which you didn't realize were an issue because you're far too close to the game because you've been working on so much. So yeah, you can never play test too much to kind of fine tune those elements of the game.
That's a really good tip, because I think some people will be watching this not only to find out about the game, but I think we should certainly tag it, how to, in terms of games development, because obviously you've been doing it a long time now and been around games development for a long time, effectively. And I know you mentioned about Hyper Sentinel, but is there any other design elements, influences around the game that even tenuous, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly the going in beyond the sort of Sentinel sections where you're in the ship, and obviously we talked about Paradroid and Iridium, and some of those earlier games. But some of the modern games that have like a roguelite loop to them, the likes, even some of the sort of quirky shooters you get today, like mini shoot adventures, we'll play something like that. Playing what's that roguelike called? I can't remember what it's called now. It's Nova. I'm gonna have to look it up on Steam now. What's it called? Nova Shift? No.
I felt it felt quite like a Star Wars game to me for some reason. Of something that you might get on, something like a 16-bit machine.
Yes. There's kind of like a Millennium Falcon versus the Death Star thing there, isn't there?
Something going on there.
Yeah, but also the moon base, the hub world that you can go back to. A lot of modern kind of games have that idea of you've got the sit forward gameplay where it's quite intense, and then when you die you go back to a hub world, and that's the time when you can go and talk to characters, you can go and explore a little bit, get a little bit more of the lore, the narrative of the game. And so by building the moon base was us taking inspiration from those kinds of games, like Hades does that, and lots of other games do that.
And the storyline and the characters, how did that evolve? Who came up with that?
The storyline, I suppose primarily that was myself and Pete. So Pete and I would sit down and talk through what kind of characters would be interesting for the game. We wanted a lead character who was kind of a bit edgy, a bit quirky, a bit sort of interesting as the elite pilot. And then we've got the kind of the mad scientist, we've got the kind of military commander, hitting some of those tropes, but putting an interesting twist on each of them. So Dr. Heimlock, I think, was definitely Pete's creation, his space Viking mad scientist, with his Dr. Robotnik things going on.
Brown sort of character, isn't he?
Yeah, so that was definitely I think Pete gets most of the credit for the characters, and he's thought of the backstory and what their inspirations might be. It's always good when you kind of talk to a character and you get a hint of what might be going on in the background, even if it's never stated in the game, but the person who came up with the character knows why they're what that thing is. And so it just makes them a bit more multi-dimensional and interesting to talk to. But also they're there to kind of give you direction in terms of how you might upgrade your ship, and to give you some extra pointers in that respect.
And who did you have a illustrator draw those? Because they're pretty high end sort of, characters, aren't they?
Yeah, so Mo is the concept artist who's worked with those characters. So he would have Mo sat down with Pete and worked through a whole load of again. There's some of this is on our Discord group, but there's a whole load of sketches first of all, to kind of like with just some ideas down, and then you kind of refine those down and do a few more sketches, and then you might do a kind of color version. So it takes multiple stages to finalize those characters, and Mo did a phenomenal job on those.
Great. I mean, it's quite I played the game, like I say, a few weeks back, played it again. It's quite unexpected and I think this is the thing, there's more to this game than just the kind of actual game element, isn't there? Really, the characters, obviously, there's different worlds, the droid area. There's I think of another like a retro game that has such an element. I mean, Star Fox somewhat, because that'd be great if we sold as many copies as that.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
But that again had that. It's that sort of balance, isn't it?
I loved Star Fox 64, or Lilac Wars as it was called here in the UK. Absolutely loved it. I played it to death. Had the Rumble pack, and like and that game had that thing where each time you played it, you could make different choices.
Right. Yeah.
And it was really, you wanted to play it to look at all the different choices, and so that was definitely an inspiration for what we're doing in Hyper Sentinel Fusion as well. And like you say, I think retro is almost a style, right? A lens through which this, it evokes the nostalgia, but you're doing things that you can never do on old hardware, and you're kind of fulfilling, as I said earlier, fulfilling some of the fantasies that you had back then about, what if I could land the ship and go inside? What if I could go back to the moon base, or and talk to characters, stuff that we couldn't do back then, but you can do now. Kind of like fulfilling that imagination, I think.
I think the other thing you've managed to do is not a lot of fluff in the game. There's nothing worse than sitting there having to watch too much.
Absolutely.
You are in that golden era, if you like. If you're trying to get that nostalgia back.
100%. Yeah, I'm super. I'm super.
Just pressing you have to do it to get the story, but you're not sitting there for 10 minutes.
No, it absolutely is. That's really important. And for me personally, I'm super kind of all over making it concise, and how do we say this in fewer words? How do we make it the most elegant, the most elegant version of this we can? Because I have such a short attention span. As soon as I have to press the A button more than 3 times, I'm like, oh God, come on, you've lost me. Whereas I think if you've just got that little bit of flavor, but you can still kind of keep up the tempo of the game, there's a sweet spot that you can hit where you feel really absorbed in the world without getting kind of feeling like you've lost the tempo of the game. Because at the end of the day, this is a fast-paced kind of game, and you want people to they go on a run, they get some upgrades, but then they die. They come up against this massive boss, and then they die, and they're like, okay, I'll go back to the moon base. And I'm like, well, it's 11 o'clock at night, I should probably go to bed, but I'll tell you what, I'll just go to the upgrade console and spend some of my loot first. And then you buy some upgrades, and you're like, you know what, I just want to test these upgrades out, I'll do one more run, and then before you know it, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're wondering what you're doing with your life. So that's that's the kind of tempo that you want to maintain.
Keep the addictive aspect to it without obviously destroying people's life.
Yes, apologies to anyone that might lose sleep, but no, I mean, in all seriousness, I think it's that's what we want for our games. We want them to draw us in and be compelling.
Definitely. It's quite a hard challenge, isn't it? Because there's various debates, which, if you want to give your comment down below on this, is what it's something's a retro game, something's a modern game, but then there's this sort of middle area, isn't there, of like you say, when you're using the kind of modern technology, how do you work that balance? Especially things like the art, the sound, just bringing in the sound into the conversation as well. How do you kind of not go and just use Unity, or is that what you use in development?
Yes.
And make it all smooth. But equally, you don't want to just make it look like another game that could have come out, not knocking it, but in 1988, because this is just my view. I'll let you answer in a minute, but why would you make a game better than something like, let's do R-Type again? R-Type's good enough, Don't make Point Break again, because they've done that before and it was a big mistake. How do you get that improvement upon saying so? I wouldn't say perfect, but in a certain genre? Do you have to go outside of scope like you're doing?
Yeah, so I think we've always called it neo retro. So you're the idea being that you want to capture all of the nostalgia, all of that sense of put a smile on people's face, because they are seeing the pixels and the pixel art graphics. They are getting a boxed game with a color manual and all the rest of it. You want to capture those feelings, but then add the new. And you specifically within, like you say, within the graphics themselves, if you look at it, it's beautiful pixel art, and it looks, style-wise, it looks like a 16-bit machine, a Mega Drive or an Amiga or something. But actually, we've got dynamic lighting in there, dynamic lighting and shadows. So when the droids are moving around, you've got these wonderful light cones, moving between doorways and so on, because it just looks awesome. And you have to get, it's kind of using the retro as a style, but then taking it to the next level. And rather than being confined to what was what was possible on the hardware back then. You know, it's fantastic when people go and make new games for old hardware, but what we're doing is kind of the opposite. We're kind of taking the stuff that was really enjoyable in the games that were older and putting them on new hardware, and that means taking advantage of what we can do with the hardware, having bigger, more elaborate worlds, having dynamic lights, having incredible sound, having loads of stuff flying around on screen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like retro on steroids.
Okay. Yes, I suppose there's two ways you can do it. I mean, I think you know the guy like Bitmap Bureau, for example, who I worked with when I was in publishing myself. Came out on modern platforms, and then they went back and made Neo Geo, and they made that sort of version. Is that the de facto way of doing it? Like, is it harder to make a game the other way around? So you make it on a Commodore 64 and then try and make it for Switch.
I mean, and Bitmap Bureau are an incredible team, and they make amazing games. So great group of developers. So hats off to them with everything they do. But I mean, we
make this for the Commodore 64 is my question.
No. I mean, I have spoken to developers who work on the Spectrum Next or the Commodore 64 and said, do you think we could do a version of Hyper Sentinel or Hyper Sentinel Fusion on these machines and do it justice? And they're like, nah, not really. You're throwing around far too many effects here. You'd have to strip so much out that you'd lose the soul of what the game is. And so I think for this style of game, there's other styles of games, perhaps it's more doable, but for this style of game, it's more like we want to take the flavor of retro and then turn it up to 11.
That's your Neo around. Oh, you're saying
that's the Neo retro. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Is it? Have you trademarked that, or because
no?
It's a nice approach, because I like to experiment, and I like to play games, new games as well. I think that I'm not going to name names because they'll batter me probably for it, but when you push it too far and smooth it out, I think it loses its soul, though.
Absolutely.
It's not quite a modern game. It's not quite a retro game. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like
100%, and that's again, that's
for me. It should be on a mobile phone and stay there.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where you've got to get the balance right. The inspiration and the nostalgia has got to be there, and it's got to come through in everything. And I think the way when you've got it right, it's when you look at a game and your brain thinks that this could be a game on the C64. You look at it and you think, oh, this could have been on this. Now, in reality, it's rose tinted glasses. You go back and look and you're like, oh, wait a minute. No, they didn't have dynamic lights on the C64, obviously. But it looks like it could have been on the C64, but it only with the rose tinted glasses on. In reality, it never could have been. So I think that's the place where you get to if you show it to people and they're like, oh yeah, that looks like it was a game from back then. But in reality, it when you look closely, no, it doesn't, because you've turned everything up to impossible levels. So I think it's trying to make the game appear as it is in your head, in your rose tinted memories, rather than the reality.
Yeah. Hyper Sentinel, was that out on iPad and phone?
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Although Hyper Sentinel, I think Apple have changed their operating system so many times, it might not be on the Apple Store anymore, unfortunately.
I'll just get it out there, guys. Sorry to interrupt I have a real problem playing games on a phone. I can never do it. I have to have a controller or a joystick in my hand.
Yeah, me too.
For somebody, and I travel a lot as well, so I take a games console with me. I just can't play phone games. And I respect the developers on phone games. I think it's an amazing feat to be able to create a game that small. But I think I'm so washed with retro that I have to have a physical thing in my hand to play. It's just, and I can't see the point of sitting there with an iPad with a controller, because I know you can do that as well. But anyway, the only one I've seen is a Switch. These guys have got one around here where you can put it in a dock, and it's got an arcade stick. They're quite good, actually, but I can't really sort of take that on the train with me. So
no, it's not as portable, is it? No, I'm the same. I play on controller mostly.
This is an arcade game for me, you know, with sort of a deeper elements really. And I think you've done a great job. And I know you, and I'm sitting across the way to you, but I think you've done a great job of just extending that what you did on the Hyper Sentinel game. So it feels quite different. This game, you know, it's got a nod to the original.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of like where you've hopefully people will play this demo and figure that it, you know, it is quite a unique title, even if you don't like specifically retro games as well. You know, you're not collecting physical games, just a quick pick up and play game to play, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, 100%. I think you know, we wanted to do a sequel that was worthy of existing. You know, sometimes you do a sequel and it's like, oh, it's just the same game with a few extra things in it. We wanted to be like, no, this takes it to a completely new level, completely different experience. You know, much deeper. Everything about it is like new and bigger and more exciting.
Yeah.
And it gives actually a richer gameplay experience to the original Hyper Sentinel. So yeah, I think that was really important that we take it to that next level. And like you say, it's not just for retro gaming fans. I think anybody who enjoys fast-paced action games, who enjoys kind of tight upgrade loops, is going to get a kick out of it.
Well, here, should we talk about the Kickstarter? Because this is going to be out. I'm going to try and get this out on the weekend. So you're out Friday at 9 o'clock, which this had already been happened. Hopefully, somewhat funded or near to it. It would be nice, wouldn't it?
Fingers crossed.
And what's it all about then, as they say? Why Kickstarter, and what's in the Kickstarter to make it worthwhile for people to get involved?
Yeah, sure. So Kickstarter is a great way for us to bring the community into the game. We've got a fantastic following on Kickstarter. We've done 21 campaigns now, and so we've got a really passionate group of people who follow what we do. And this is kind of, you know, we're making this for those people. And Kickstarter is a really great way of bringing people into the journey with us. And also, we love, you know, talking of nostalgia and neo-retro, we love to do physical rewards for people. So we've got this amazing floppy disk USB, which is loaded with special features. So you can select the game on your platform of choice, on any of the consoles, or on PC or on Mac. And then you can also get this floppy disk with all these loaded with special features on it. It's actually, when it slides back and a USB stick comes out. But it, you know, I don't know, I can see in the background there you've got a whole collection of games and what have you. You know, I've got boxes and boxes of cassettes and floppy disks on the shelf at home. And there's nothing like being able to put another brand new game, you know, open it up and get that lovely new smell, and flick through the full color manual and look at all the different weapons and upgrades and characters and hints and tips. That for me was always part of the experience when I was a kid. In fact, I'd always delay playing the game as long as possible, because I'd want to like enjoy the box, and then I'd want to enjoy the manual and soak that in, and then I'd want to go into the options menus and see what all the options you know what I mean? It was all part of the kind of build up to playing the game for me. So Kickstarter allows us to kind of capture that and to deliver this to deliver all these extras to people, and to get people actually more involved in the remainder of the development process as we move towards release.
Okay. And early birds, how long do they run for?
The early birds run for, I think they run for about a week, I think, something like that.
They'll be available when I'm going to try and get this out on, if I can, Saturday.
Yeah.
So you can still get a bit of a discount. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so you can get a discount on the floppy disk version, and you can get a discount on the double pack, which comes with the Hyper Sentinel Fusion floppy disk, but also the original Hyper Sentinel cassette USB, and some other bits and bobs.
Because that's, if people have missed it the first time round, you've got a reasonable amount of people, this has gone out by them, interested in the game, a sign up crew, the hardcore. So some of those might have it already, but there's people, you know, watching this who maybe missed the first one round. I must admit, I did cover it with you. I met you, and But you know, there's so many things to watch these days.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah,
we're going to put the cassette as well, the first one.
that's right. They can get that, and in fact, they can add on any of the books and cassettes that we've done previously as an add-on in the Kickstarter if you want to catch up on the collection.
Okay.
But yeah, as you say, we've got a lot of followers. In fact, we've got more followers pre-launch for this campaign than we've had on any of our previous 21 successful campaigns. So we're really excited about that. And I think part of that is because if you follow the page, it's going to be too late by the time this video comes out, so I shouldn't say. But yeah, if you follow the page, you get a little bit of a bonus as well.
Fantastic. Okay, that'd be good. And what about you know, let's just touch on it now. Your name is Hewson. Your dad's name is Hewson. And what do you think? You know, maybe nothing. Maybe you're a solo pilot as a in the ship, if you like. But what do you think with Huey? You know, influenced you to, you know, you come from a gaming family. You're in a games. You have your own games company now. I mean, it's everybody's dream, isn't it? How does that feel? You know, do you think, you know?
Yeah, sometimes. Most of the time, you're too busy working. But yeah, no, it's brilliant. Yeah, it always was the dream, and yeah, it was great memories from those days. Going to the shows and hanging out at the booths and collecting all the cassettes at home and playing all the games. So yeah, it's really cool.
Are there any other sort of, you know, father and son prodigy? Like, is there another? I don't know many where the son has gone on to set up his own games company from the 80s in this country. Is this?
I don't know. I can think of a couple of people who are in the industry who had a parent in the industry. But yeah, I don't know. It's still a young industry, right? So there's not that many.
True. I'm not doing This Is Your Life. Don't worry. We'll do it at another time. And I'll put some links as well. We had a good chat with Rob at Blackpool as well, which was obviously before the book launch from last year. And I'll put a few other links as well because we've caught up over the years. But it's really good to talk about the game specifically. And as you'll see at this point in the interview, some more kind of gameplay overlays I've added in, and also floppy and all the other little bits. And Rob's given me some nice assets to do that. So thanks for doing that. I think the final question I've probably got is kind of linked to what I just asked you, really, about your own personal foray into the industry. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned in your journey in games development? And it could be several lessons, maybe. Or do you know, somebody who's either a budding developer or even has dreams of setting up their own development business? What sort of things would you kind of steer them towards, or not, or steer away from?
I mean, for us, John, the co-founder of Huey Games, came up with this phrase, "survive long enough to get lucky," which is something that we've always turned to. That's what's kept us in business for 10 years. And one of the reasons we ended up becoming known as a porting and co-development studio is because, we focused first of all on how can we generate income, revenue for the business? How can we get to profitability? How can we build a business where we can repeatedly, get work that then enables us to go and work on the things that we're passionate about, including Hyper Sentinel Fusion. So I think there's a lot of survivorship bias or success bias out there. We hear about the massive indie games that break out and make people rich, but for every one of those, there's 10,000 people who crash and burn. So I think if you're pragmatic about it, those and have that sort of mentality of, well, first of all, we've got to make something that can keep us in business, have a business model, and then that will enable us to work on to place some bets on some stuff that we're passionate about and get those games out without having to rely on them being a massive huge success that covers everything. I think that would be the advice, the only advice that we'd have after 10 years of doing this.
Yeah. So you've kind of like got your jam, your kind of day work, if you like.
Yeah.
And the jam tomorrow is like trying to release a #1 hit, which is very difficult, isn't it?
And absolutely. And at the end of the day, the day worker is still working on games.
Mm.
It's still in the industry.
You're still doing the tech and the development.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is it translations as well as porting? Is it, or
no? We specialize in optimization. We specialize in co-development, online multiplayer, and bringing games across from, typically from PC across to consoles and mobiles and mobile platforms, and working. So we get hired by a lot of publishers to convert games in that respect, and sometimes by indie developers as well that we work alongside. That's most of what we do.
That's good practical advice, because especially if you're gonna, I mean, I've sort of done it. I do this. This is my thing now. What I do, games you loved, and it's always good to to have a backup plan, if you like, in that sense. So I'm going to ask you a slightly wilder question, because I have to. But yeah, I mean, you have to be pragmatic, because unfortunately we've all got to pay bills and support certain things.
Yes.
And especially if it's like, you don't want to put all your bets on one bet, and if you might have that one game in your head, but it's a huge gamble, isn't it, if you give up everything just to do that one thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's a massive gamble, and like always cover the downside. Always think about the worst case scenarios for everything you're trying to do, and make sure that those things aren't going to sink you. I think that's the key thing. And then if you just roll the dice on one thing, chances are statistically that it's not going to work out. I mean, that's just the reality. We hear about the big breakout successes, but they are very much in the minority.
I think it'd be interesting to see who covers the game as this goes out as well, because I think internationally it'd be great if it's got picked up, in different regions as well. I think we were talking about this another time, because that can make a big difference, can't it? Not saying UK is restricted, but there's so many other territories that could be interested in Hyper Sentinel.
Absolutely. And the better the Kickstarter does, the more
as well.
The more languages we can do, and so on. So
it will be translated then in that sense.
That's the plan. Yeah, absolutely. We don't have the final list of languages, but obviously, the more we can do, the more people that can play the game, the better for us, and the better for hopefully lots of people enjoying the game.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we'll be watching the Kickstarter with close attention, and I very much wish you luck, Rob, with the whole campaign. If anybody just wants to share it, even if they've not got the means to buy it, that would be appreciated as well, because it's just good to see a games development business still with its offices and still up and running, and producing interesting new titles, and taking it a bit further. Like you say, you could have just done a kind of cut and paste, change the colors, few bits, but you've kind of pushed it a bit further, haven't you, this one? So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, really appreciate that. And like you say, if you like what we're doing, even just sharing it to your community, the Kickstarter is really appreciated.
Fantastic. Well, good to have you on, Rob.
Cheers, Chris. Yeah,
and we'll I'm sure we'll bump into you at an event or otherwise.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, and we'll see you guys on the next video. See you later.
See ya.
Hi, my name's Jonathan Port, and I'm the lead developer on Hyper Sentinel Fusion. I'll talk a little bit about the game today and what we're offering for Kickstarter. So you'll play the first, we call it the Sentinel levels, which is where you fly your super fast, super agile Space Sentinel. You'll fly around the level, you'll destroy the enemies in the level. There'll be weaponry on the ground, so there'll be various turrets or enemies that swoop out, hatches and things like that. You will destroy all that. and that's your kind of fast-paced adrenaline shooter that you could probably recognise slightly from the first game. So then when you land and you go into the droid stages, you can kind of play it a little bit more how you want to. So you could play it a little bit hide and seek if you want, or you could just go out and try and engage the enemies and take over the cores and clear all the other droids out. You can play it as you want, or like I say, you could sneak around. So it's slightly slower paced. It's still arcade. It's not like completely stealthy, but there's a little bit of stealth you can do. You can kind of, if you work your way around the level and avoid engagement, then you might be able to get some of the loot. In each of those levels, there's kind of like a mega control center in the middle of it, and if you destroy that, that will alert all the droids anyway. So in order to get everything, you kind of force some engagement, but you don't have to. It's really up to you. But the thing here is that the more you do, the more loot you might get, and you can use that loot to upgrade your ship. I guess I should add actually here, so just like the first game, we have some really cool bosses as well, and I'm not going to go into the different ones there to spoil it for you. I'll let you hopefully play the final game and get to see them all. But yeah, we've got a really good variety of bosses there, and there's some really, they're not just bullet sinks. There's some really, some really good stuff going on with some of those, and they should be really fun to play. We really started from a gameplay point of view, and that really starts from controls. So we started looking at how the ship might move, and it's quite different in this game. In fact, and the really thing we wanted to bring into it was a lot more natural kind of movement for the ship. You really improve on the controls. We wanted to have the feeling that you really are in a really agile kind of spaceship, where you could swoop and dodge. We wanted it to really feel kind of having a kind of engaging feel to play, much more so than the first game. So the original idea was really to start with just enhancing the original game, make it a bit bigger, but the same kind of game, the same kind of gameplay. Flying your super fast fighter through some levels, destroying lots of stuff, defeating some bosses, and just having some fun time really, and hopefully getting a high score at the end of it. Get yourself on the high score table. So those are the original kind of initial ideas of how the game should play. And then, as we built out probably the first stage, and we started playing around with it, we had some enemies in, and it was, we built what we thought was a pretty fun game. We kind of came up with the idea that actually it would be really cool if your ship could fly around, destroy all your enemies, destroy some of the weaponry on the, whatever it was you were attacking, whether it's be that in space or on land or whatever it was. You would defeat the kind of defences of your enemy, and then clear the way, if you like, to land. And then we thought it would be really cool if you could then deploy a little droid into the surface of the underground, or inside the ship, whatever it was, whatever stage it was that you were playing, and then you would control a droid, and the gameplay would then flip and switch. We'd already developed the controls for the main Sentinel spaceship, so we actually used almost the same identical control system for the droids. So the droids play. It'll feel very natural. You'll come off flying your ship, you'll land, you'll have your droid, and it will be the same controls again. The only difference being is that you'll have an aim to it, so you can use your right stick, which again is that bring kind of like a modern gameplay element into it as well. So it should feel kind of like have that feel of a 90s arcade game, but also feel very natural for modern gamers too. I guess the droids is probably my favourite part of the game, and the reason for that probably is it's probably the AI of the droids themselves. So we built quite a comprehensive AI system for the droids, and that was all about making the droids obviously fun for you to play, but fun to play against as well, because you'll control a droid and you'll go around this environment, if you like, and you'll be facing up against other droids. So the hook here is that you can avoid the droids as much as possible. some droids, and you can kind of try and grab some loot as you move around, and hopefully not be seen by the droids. But also you can engage the droids as well in combat, and if you defeat the droid, you can take the droid core, and then you can take control of that droid that you've just destroyed, or rather you can regenerate a new droid in the form of that droid that you've just destroyed. So that means that you could then take on the speed and the movement speeds of the droid, you can take on the weaponry of the droid, and certain characteristics. But yeah, in terms of the AI, I think we've built a really great fun system here. So the way the AI works is, so in a lot of games it's mainly about pathfinding, and you'll have enemies. They'll search out their paths and they'll find routes to where you are, or and that's kind of as to a degree is as far as many games go, but we want to take it much further than that. So we actually built behaviours into the AI as well. So droids can be have different behaviours, different levels. So they could be fairly passive, they could be very aggressive, or they could be somewhere in between. And these kind of behaviours build out in different ways. So a passive droid may try and hide from you. An aggressive droid may see you and try and attack you. Some droids will ignore you unless you engage them, in which case they'll then attack you as well. But then they'll do things like they'll kind of realise if they're losing the battle, and they'll kind of give up the engagement and try and hide away from you at that point, or run away at that point. Or they may kind of feel that they're winning the battle, and then they'll really go after you. And it's a really fun system. They will hunt you down, they can hide, they can dodge from you, they can kind of come up behind you and sneak up on you, and there really is quite a lot of levels to that AI, and it works really well, and it is really fun to play. So probably my favourite part of the programming, at least, of making the game, and I think we've come up with something that is really fun to play as well.